have a seat. All right, let's get started. All right, well, good morning, everyone. What a glorious morning, isn't it? I am Tyra Anderson-Montina. I'm the site director for Europe Boston. And it's such a pleasure to have and host all of you in our building this morning. And so please come on in. I'm really excited to get started. And before we do, I do want to introduce Lisa Murray, who is this new state president from Massachusetts for Citizens Bank. She's going to kick us off with some opening remarks. So Lisa, please come take the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming this morning. Thank you to Gerald and Tyra and the whole Europe team for hosting us in this just fabulous space here today. We truly value our relationship with Europe, and it's great to have the opportunity to highlight our partnership in this forum. My name, as Tara said, is Lisa Murray, and I am the state president for Citizens in Massachusetts, and following in the footsteps of Jerry Sargent, who is also here with us today. I can't tell you how nice it is to be here in person with all of you, our community partners, as well as some of our clients. I've had the pleasure to work with many of you in my role as head of not-for-profit and professionals banking, and I'm excited to continue these relationships in this new expanded capacity. I also look forward to speaking with each of you and getting to know you better and learning about your programs. Please stay tuned for an invitation from me to join us to talk about all the things we're going to learn about today. It is also an honor to have some of our business partners here with us. Thank you to Jim Rooney of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and to JD Cheslav of the Mass Business Roundtable. Thanks for coming. You have both been such strong advocates and partners to citizens, leading conversations, advocating for change, and identifying solutions to build a more diverse talent pipeline and to help close the opportunity gap. Most recently, our teams worked together to host a job fair at the Lawn on D, bringing together nearly 40 companies and 1,000 applicants. This event is an incredible example of the community impact we can have when we work together. At Citizens, we appreciate that our colleagues also seek ways to get involved and to make our partnerships in the community stronger. Just this past year, colleagues have volunteered more than 20,000 hours with Massachusetts organizations and participate actively on more than 150 boards and committees, including many that are here today. We are honored to have Gerald Chertavian, founder and president of Europe, and Dr. Pam Eddinger, president of Bunker Hill Community College, to join Citizens Chairman and CEO Bruce Van Saun for an important discussion on strengthening communities through workforce and economic development. But before we get started, we have a few special announcements to make. To that end, it is my pleasure to introduce our Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Bruce Van Saun, who since joining Citizens has led the company through a time of incredible growth and transformation. At Citizens, we have our credo, which provides an essential guidepost for all the ways we work to help our customers, colleagues, communities, and shareholders reach their full potential. As we emerge from the pandemic, our credo continues to guide our actions to ensure that we deliver well for all of those we serve. Citizens' longtime commitment to the community exemplifies both our credo and Bruce's vision. He made community a central focus in his efforts to transform the bank. And during his tenure, we have seen, among other things, a tremendous boost in our volunteer engagement of our colleagues to local organizations like yourselves. Under Bruce's leadership, Citizens was recently recognized as the best bank in the United States by Euromoney in a market of more than 5,000 banks. We have a lot to be proud of as we look into the future. And with that, I'd like to introduce our chairman and CEO, Bruce Van Saun, to say a few words.
Take this off. Thank you, Lisa. And before I get rolling, let me just say a few words about my colleagues here. But Lisa just stepped up to be the state president last week. And she's been with Citizens for 23 years and provides financial and other types of strategic advice to professional services firms and not-for-profits. And she succeeds Jerry Sargent, who's now the head of our Northeast corporate banking region. And Jerry, you did a great job there for 11 years. Big shoes to fill, but I'm sure you'll do fine. So looking forward to that. Jerry's going to be on the panel with me, so can provide some nice local flavor of some of the things that we're engaged in here in this market. Special thank you to our partners here, so especially to our host Year Up, as well as the Bunker Hill Community College. And it's remarkable to see how different organizations can come together to create a meaningful impact in our communities. Helping strengthen the communities we serve is at the heart of our credo at Citizens. And to do that, we need a sustained effort around ensuring that the region's workforce is equipped for the challenges and opportunities that it faces today and going forward. Recently, Citizens partnered with several business organizations, including the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and the Massachusetts Business Roundtable, to link 1,100 registered job seekers with nearly 40 companies that had open positions. The needs of employers are shifting rapidly. A recent report by the Baker administration called the Future of Work Report estimated potentially 300,000 to 400,000 people may need help switching occupations in the next decade. At Citizens, we face many of the same issues as other employers in this environment, and we're laser focused on doing the work necessary to make sure that we have the right people with the right skills to serve our customers. In our view, we can only thrive when our communities thrive. And to that end, we're partnering with organizations that support low and moderate income individuals by providing the tools that they need to compete for jobs that provide the foundation for long-term financial security. We've also doubled down on our commitment to accelerate the pathway to home ownership for low and moderate income borrowers, equipping individuals with essential building blocks for economic confidence, financial security, and long-term stability. So with that background, let me proceed to make a few announcements regarding our strong support of workforce development across the areas we serve here in Boston. First, I'm pleased to announce that we're committing more than $650,000 to workforce development programs to organizations here locally, with another $190,000 in the pipeline for approval this fall. The funding will benefit 20 organizations, many represented in the audience here today, supporting pathways to college, workforce training and development, and digital inclusion initiatives. Second, at Citizens, we've partnered with Year Up since 2005, which has led to direct hiring of nearly 200 Year Up graduates through internship and education programming. Last year, Citizens colleagues logged more than 1,300 volunteer hours with Year Up, and we're proud to continue to support this great organization this year for a total of $1.6 million. We're also able to announce today that Citizens Charitable Foundation will support Year Up's digital inclusion program to help address the digital divide in underserved communities. Third, I'm proud to announce that we will continue to partner with LISC here in Boston, as well as in Philadelphia and Providence, to connect local workforce to a mid-level healthcare career path through the Bridges to Career Opportunities and Career Retention programs. Those are really great jobs, long-lasting, sustainable jobs that society needs. We're also working with LISC on a pilot program to address digital inclusion and opportunity that's focused on access and skill building to help local communities adapt during the post-COVID recovery, and have invested $750,000 in this initiative. And that's not all, folks. And last but not least, today we're here to announce we're partnering with Bunker Hill Community College by launching the Citizens Community College Accelerator with an investment in Education Design Lab's Community College Growth Engine Fund. This will bring their innovative pilot to Boston, which will design a new class of credentials called Micro Pathways. Now, micro pathways make learning portable, flexible, affordable, relevant, and visible. They're designed to lead to a degree, include a 21st century skills micro-credential or soft skills, and result in a job at or above the local median wage. Now, before I close, I just want to say that I'm very grateful to be joined here today with Gerald and Dr. Eddinger to dive deeper into all these issues, Jerry as well, and the collective work that we're all doing. It's my hope that we can come out of this conversation with a perspective on how best the private, public, and nonprofit sector can further align and work together to meet the accelerated workforce needs of today as well as tomorrow. With that, I'd like to introduce Tyra Anderson-Montina, the site director for the Europe Boston campus, who will be moderating our discussion. Tyra?
All right, thank you. I think now we can have our panelists to come up and please take the stage so we can get this conversation started.
But I get to be next to Tyra.
Excellent. Well, as we all know, this pandemic has been extremely difficult across many sectors across the country. We're surviving both the effects of the pandemic and a renewed effort to address racial inequity. How are leaders thinking differently about equity of opportunity in their sectors as we grow into this next phase of new normal? I would love for you, Gerald, to kick us off in answering that question.
Sure. Thank you, Tyra, and thanks to all my Europe colleagues for helping today let us all start to believe what it's going to be like as we move through this pandemic, and kind of the hugs and the handshakes that define us as human beings is powerful. So this is a nice day in the kind of evolution of this. And also thanks to Bruce, you, and Citizens. I've known Citizens for now decades, and it has always been an exceptional organization, and it has only increased our reputation under your leadership. Thank you very much. I would argue that this is a moment in time where companies are indeed thinking very differently about what it means to build a pluralistic society. And having done this work now for 21 years, it feels like this is an opportunity for us to imagine differently who gets included in economic mobility as we come out of this pandemic. What does it mean to create environments within which everyone can feel as though they belong and actually advance and retain in an organization? And I've been more inspired in the last year by what I've seen corporate America lean into. And not just lean into, we're going to hire individuals who are more diverse. It's literally an inward-looking process of saying, what do we need to do differently to create a lived experience which includes all of us? And that's the first time in 20 years of working with CEOs where I've seen a real commitment to say, we can do this better, we can do it differently, and we have something to learn that is going to make us stronger, better organizations. And so I sit here today heartened by what we've seen across the country. It's emblematic of what Citizens, you are doing as one of the leaders, helping to build a society in which everyone can be included. I'll finish by saying the words the American dream were coined in 1931 by a gentleman called James Truslow Adams. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer and historian. In his book, The Epic of America, he wrote, "The American dream was a dream of a land in which life should be fuller and richer and better for everyone based on their ability and achievement." And he went on to say it's a land in which each man and each woman can be recognized for what they are, regardless of fortuitous circumstance of birth or privilege. And I would argue that is what we have the opportunity to make happen today with a combined private, public sector, nonprofit sector. That is at ours for the taking, and will build a society we're happy to pass on to our children. So I am more inspired today than I've been when I started Europe in 2000, and that's down to efforts like Bruce, you articulated today.
Great.
Great, thank you, Gerald. Pam, how would you answer and reflect on that question?
I think the COVID pandemic, and I see it as more than just the COVID pandemic. I think we've had a twin pandemic since the summer, 2 summers ago, when the anti-racism protests hit our society, and there's a moment of not only reckoning, but recognition that this is a turning point, and that whatever recovery that we're going to do from both the revival, really, of the what I call the second civil rights movement, and the recovery from COVID, really is a point of, it's a call to arms, right? For those of us who, like citizens, see our society in this, as Gerald says, pluralistic way, and that we all have responsibility to look to our communities of color, our communities of poverty, the students that I serve, who've really suffered from this pandemic. It's a bit like the pandemic has sort of ripped the top off of society, and now we see how little we have been investing in talent, in our school systems and healthcare and transportation and childcare, and all those things that are woven together in order to give us a more just and more equitable recovery. And I do see that American dream. That is the inspiration by which we go to work every day at the community college. We look at our students and we say to the larger society, why haven't you? Look at this pool of talent, why haven't you? And one of the answers is that we have to sort of blow up our traditional understanding of higher education. It is not always do 2 years, transfer, do 2 more years, get a bachelor's, do a master's, and then you flounder around. I think the partnerships of our business and industry, our educational partners, that's beyond just institutions, in more innovative institutions like Europe, that understands that organic combination of getting folks to the jobs and then allowing them to grow in the jobs and therefore step into different levels of lifelong learning. To me, this is a convergence. This is a turning point. And as institutions like community colleges, we say, damn, it's about time. Where have you been? We've been waiting for you a long time. So we're here. We're here to hold hands. We're here to bring our students to where they should be. I thank all of you. It is an inspirational point for me. Yeah, this is the best it's been in like a decade. I agree with Gerald.
Okay, thank you. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the workforce specifically. What skills do you see emerging here in Massachusetts? And how should we really think about ensuring that all have an opportunity to be part of the workforce of the future as we combat the opportunity and skills gap? Bruce, we'd love for you to kick us off with answering that.
So I think, and thank you for both your remarks and your enthusiasm is really great to see that you feel so good. I feel good too, that we've really come through a period where there's been lots of learnings, and we need to put that to work as we focus on our strategy going forward. So one of the things that was a big learning was the world's moving digital, and it's moving much faster than anybody expected. And so that has a lot of implications for our physical distribution, where we give advice through branches, and a lot of that has to shift to digital. And then the needs of our companies who want to move faster and have access to information through digital channels. And so that means that the skills that companies need going forward around software engineers, people to code, people who understand digital, understand data, how to personalize offers to customers based on the data we have on those customers. That's a whole new genre of jobs that is going to grow. It's a burgeoning area that right now the supply is very tight. So that's an area when we talk to our corporate customers, everybody's now on the hunt for that kind of talent. And then linking it back to another learning is, the folks, the need for greater social justice and racial equality of opportunity. There's some really great opportunities if we can upskill people into those areas for the future and create a more diverse workforce and expand the talent pool in an area that we know we need more depth. So that's why when we look at some of these grants we're making, these coding programs, we've made a big donation to Black Girls Code and organizations like that, because those are skills, if we can get people positioned well for the future, I think, for the next 5, 10, for many, many years, those are going to be sustainable, high-paying jobs. So we're looking at areas like that. It's interesting when you step back and look at the country right now. We have this huge number of job openings, still 10.9 million job openings, 10 million people looking for work. It's taking a lot longer to kind of match those up. There's kind of fewer traditional service jobs, and the people who worked in those industries are looking for something else to do. It's creating, the needs of companies have shifted, so a lot of the same jobs aren't there, and people have to figure out, how do I get from where I am to where the jobs are? And so that need for workforce development is very tangible right now. And it's actually, Jerry, you could probably pick up for me, but many of our companies say they've had a good year this year. It would be even better if we had more access to talent. If our supply chain issues would resolve themselves, we could be having a fantastic year. So the demand is there, the kind of moving people from where they were pre-pandemic to where they need to be for the future, and where the current demand lies is really important. And I think institutions like ourselves, working with the nonprofits, working with the education system, working with the government, need to marshal people to be in position to take advantage of the new demand.
That's right.
Jerry, what else would you add to that?
Let me add on to Bruce's commentary, because I meet with CEOs day in and day out, and unequivocally, it is the #1 topic that we hear about in the market today. It's about talent, it's about workforce development, it's about reskilling for the future. The same report that Bruce referenced in his opening comments, commissioned by the governor, the McKinsey report, I think also argues that it's about 10% of our workforce needs to be reskilled in Massachusetts alone. So if I were to bring this to a local level, we have that phenomena going on. And the second piece of it is we have emerging industries that I think drive new opportunity, whether it's clean energy or artificial intelligence. We have biotech, as we all know, growing rapidly in the state. And then we have growth in industries like healthcare, which Bruce talked about as well. And I think there's an opportunity here not only to pivot our current workforce for the next stage in evolution of the economy, but there's an opportunity to grow our workforce. But the thing I would caution everybody about is the underpinnings of this is there are still some really important factors outside of the re-education, the reskilling. And we have some really great partners in the room who are focused on this today. Housing, the stability of our people and our neighborhoods, access to the digital economy, making sure the infrastructure is right. I'm as encouraged as anybody. I think the enthusiasm shared by my colleagues on the panel is palpable, and it's right, and there's a spotlight in this moment. But I think we need to execute now. And now's the time that these partnerships really, I think, have an opportunity to be hardened, to be forged. I see not-for-profit partnerships emerging with each other, which is really interesting to see as you take advantage of each other's skill sets to solve some of these problems that we've faced for a long time.
Thank you. Pam, what would your higher ed perspective add to that?
I agree with everything that Bruce and Gerald and Jerry has said. I'll give you a concrete example of the kind of what we call new collar jobs, rather than white collar or blue collar, new collar jobs, and farther down the road, really green collar jobs of emerging industries that will come into being, and how powerful these are. For example, we have been running some short-term micro-credentials, like Cisco, which is the basis of a lot of the IT work that goes on. Those classes are constantly full, and they're constantly calling for more and more sections. They're not full year, they're only a portion, they're like 4, 5, 6 months. And students, learners who come out get credentialed, and they're snapped up because there's 1,000 jobs available. But I think Jerry is right about the underpinning. If someone's already working to support a family, you know, a dad, a mom supporting a family of 2 children, and you say, oh, please go and reskill. Now, exactly what time and money and resources does that person have to go reskill? So we need to think about education and the support of education differently. In that, I hate to say it, you got to pay them to come to school, because you're replacing the income that they would have to support their family in order to make time to go get the American dream. And sometimes that's where we miss the boat. We say to folks, you have a full life, take on a second life, go reskill, and therefore make our workforce better. Whereas the conversation should be, we know how difficult it is already that you're supporting your family. Allow us to help with the financial pieces so you can free up time in order to come and improve our workforce. And to me, I say to our workforce partners, our industry and business partners, you put in what you get out. And the quicker you put in, the quicker you're going to have a workforce. And we'll find that. And that training, that micro-credential is not a one-time deal. Folks come back once they're stabilized in their new jobs, and they continue to train. Most of the jobs that we have, particularly in the higher skill jobs, are going to demand a bachelor's degree. We know that, or that level of training, however it's credentialed. So the longitudinal look at the American dream, I think it's important, and looking at the underpinnings, as Jerry says, of the American dream of housing, childcare, transportation, healthcare, and education as really a network, right, that sustains what we need to move our, really our post-COVID world forward. I think that's where the answer is. And everybody's got to give up something. I think higher education needs to give up its arrogance and egotistic look at the degree is the be-all and end-all. I know that's controversial. I get beat up afterwards. But, you know, community colleges, and in fact, women's colleges and historic Black colleges came into being because we're needed. That we're a second generation or a new generation of educational institutions. Now, we need to change again and partner with our nonprofits and change the educational environment yet once again. This is a definitive point, not only for workforce development. This is a monumental change in the higher ed landscape. And if we don't acknowledge that in the higher ed landscape, we're going to miss the boat. We're going to miss the boat, and I don't want us to miss the boat, because I tell you, this is a great cruise. It's just the most terrific point in time.
Oh, that resonates so much. I wish I had a soapbox for you to stand on.
Well, I can stand up.
I love that. Gerald, what would you add?
You know, I think what Pam says is really profound. And it's interesting you said you get criticized for the view you expressed. But the reality is the vast minority of people in this country, adults, go to college at 18 and graduate at 22 with a 4-year degree. The vast minority. So if you say how many adults over the age of 22 have a 4-year degree that they got between the ages of 18 and 22, think of a percentage in your head. What percent of adults over the age of 22 would say, yep, I got a 4-year degree, yes, I got it between the ages of 18 and 22. Do you have your number?
Yep.
Well, the number is 8%.
Jeez.
So think about, we have designed systems linearly, thinking the traditional student goes to school and then goes to work.
Yeah.
And then we think, well, that's 8% of adults in America today. And we wonder, the vast majority of people concomitantly do pay-worthy and credit-worthy activity at the same time, yet do our systems adapt to that, support that? Say to someone after that micro-credential, which I think is absolutely the right thing, we can hire you, but we want you to continue to get that further education.
That's right.
And therefore, we're going to support that, not just with tuition reimbursement. You can't reimburse me for what I don't have. tuition advance me, right? Help me continue to get educated. And one of our partners, it's a condition of employment. We'll hire you without a 4-year degree, without even a 2-year degree, but you must continue to get your education.
Right.
What a great condition of employment. I will pay, they will pay for it too. So I think we've often designed systems in the self-interest that we may have been privileged to experience, as opposed to what do the majority of Americans need to consume today, which is not linear, it's concomitant, and then employers increasingly saying, how do I support that, and even how do I hire for skills and not degrees, right? Which is a big shift now. We just got 56 of the largest companies in America to reduce their 4-year degree requirement on average from 88% to 50%. But then you have to train people. How do I do a skills-based interview?
That's right.
How do I reduce bias in the interview process, which often does privilege folks who've been through a 4-year path? What questions do we ask? Where do we look? Because I would argue so go community colleges, so go the United States of America.
That's right.
It's the largest single post-secondary institution in the United States. Pam should be held up as a goddess, as a heroine.
I want to write that down.
It is true. We think, and I can go around the country, and community colleges can be seen as stepchildren, right? It is the largest system we have. It educates people in a powerful and successful manner, and we've got to get off our, frankly, our cultural bias as to who's smart, who's not, who's able, who's not, and recognize for many folks this is the path towards economic mobility, and value and love our community colleges because they're our best partners, and we can do that. We have the ability to do that. So I'm, you know, and Pam, you've done an exceptional job at Bunker Hill. A really great job.
Good partners.
It's so enriching to hear such the various and unique perspectives that you all bring from the educational, nonprofit, and business sectors. And we know Governor Baker has, of course, recently made workforce development one of his top priorities. And so, Pam, I'll have you kick us off for this next one and thinking through how do you think the public, private, and nonprofit sector should come together to meet the evolving workforce needs? And what are some best practices to accomplish there?
Yes, Governor Baker has done a great job in putting together the education cabinet, a work skills cabinet, where he combined the sort of the energies of the education department, of Rosalind Acosta's place, Secretary Acosta's workforce development cabinet post, and also economic development, which is the key to a lot of this work. So he set up a dynamic and a framework that I think sort of flows down to frame the rest of our work. Education, nonprofit, and industry. I think the key that really the piece that needs strengthening is really the connection of the education and the training to the placement of industry. For a long time, we've sort of assumed that if we educate them, they will come. If we educate them, they will place. I think Gerald's work, certainly with Europe and the philosophy of get them connected early, get them connected tight, and citizens thinking of understanding that the development of a workforce is not when they reach your door at the corporation, but way before when the education starts at the beginning. That's really a reframing, and that tripartite partnership, we come together now at a more important point of the beginning, and we all understand the learner better. And I think Gerald's sort of explication of who the community college student is and where they reside, and that college students, by and large, are not 17 to 22. Only a third of my students, Gerald, are traditional age. I call the rest of the students post-traditional, not non-traditional, because they're actually the majority. And in that pool of talent is where the partnership of nonprofit credentialing colleges and universities and industry partners ought to sit, right? They're just like the governor has set a tripartite partnership in his cabinet. I think that's really a model for what's existing right now across this panel. right? I mean, it is the four of us. We should be at the center of what develops the workforce. And there should not be daylight amongst the four of us. And we're thankful for the large financial investment of citizens. But the government cannot simply say, the four of you got it together, we're going to leave the scene, right? So what is needed in support is the government support in healthcare, in transportation, in childcare, in housing. And the public's investment, and we are a public good. If the government's investment in those four things are right, then these types of partnerships will catapult, using that word that is being used at the Boston Foundation and SkillWorks, we will catapult our learners into the workforce. It is, to me, one of the most elegant ways of getting to what we need.
Let's just go right on down the
Yeah,
line.
I would just build, that's great insights, and I would build on what Pam said is, banks have a very unique role to play in this convening of the nonprofits and the government and the education system in terms of prepping people for where the job opportunities lie. But we're very close to the customers, that ultimately where the job demand comes from. And so having seasoned executives like Jerry and Lisa and others in this market, we can see, I could grow more. I need like 50 truck drivers. I need 100 welders. I need whatever the case may be, coders, to then take that demand inventory and bring that back to the groups that are already convened. That's really the driver for everything. Is where are the jobs and where are the needs when you look out 3 years or 5 years. And so I think banks play a critical role in synthesizing that information, because usually those employers aren't of a size that they can get everybody to dance to their tune. But when you pull it all together, then you can bring that back and start to get the whole apparatus working to deliver what's needed. And we do, as a super regional bank, we do that not just here in this market, but we do it in Rhode Island, we do it in Philadelphia, we do it in Pittsburgh, do it in Cleveland. And so we trust our senior coverage bankers to work with companies, find out what their workforce needs are, and then get the system working to make it happen. And what we do there is, in addition to the money, we also have a significant commitment in terms of volunteerism. So when I came aboard Citizens 8 years ago, we were volunteering about 50,000 hours. We're up to about 150,000 hours pre-pandemic, and we hope to get back. But we channel that into things like workforce development, strengthening communities, financial literacy, things that our bankers are really good at and can have a positive impact at. So we're an important part of that convening function, that link ultimately to the end demand where the companies need the skills.
I think what Bruce says resonates in that much of workforce development starts with seeing almost the individual who needs education, as opposed to start with the business who needs talent, and then backwards engineer what does this human being need in order to satisfy the needs of the employer, the economic mobility engine of employers. And so I think approaching it from the demand side first, and then using the power and the bully pulpit to say, now let's create the ecosystem of education and nonprofits, but saying, and if you can produce, we will hire.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's been often that supply and demand haven't really cleared because there aren't clear signaling between we will hire based on these criteria, and now you have to hit the mark, right? And set an expectation as to what talent looks like, what it means to, as we say, suit up and show up a year up professionally. But I think that's where the corporation can play a different role systemically and then challenge the community to hit a bid that we can authentically assess against, and then create that mobility. And I think we're seeing those coalitions come together in different cities now around the country in a way we hadn't seen before. And SkillWorks being one of the ones who really, I think, pioneered this quite well. And frankly, people like Gear Up, ultimately, we would be better off if the system cleared itself rather than needing interventions to help frankly, exist because of systemic dysfunction elsewhere. So ultimately, we'd love to say, how does the system work and get out of the way eventually, rather than just try to grow an intervention that exists because of dysfunction elsewhere. So that would be the long-term goal. Jerry?
I would just add, taking sort of a Massachusetts-centric kind of view of this, that there could be winners and losers out of this. We have a third of our workforce working from a hybrid model today. Technology is enabling a more dispersed workforce. And I completely agree that the educational system is a foundation of success. But we sit here in Massachusetts, in some ways, in a higher cost state with being a northern state with higher energy costs, as an example. We have higher housing costs, as we've discussed. And what I think is really critical is that the community in front of me today, the partnerships that we forge around this state, will make a difference in keeping Massachusetts really competitive in this next move forward. And so I would bring a sense of urgency to the kind of conversation that Pam is talking about and Gerald's talking about. And I know Bruce works really hard at our company to inoculate, this culture of giving back and being in the community. And I think this is the moment where it's really meaningful because the stakes are high. I think you could see education migrate to different parts of this country, and you could see models succeed in certain places but not others. So I do believe that a lot of this is geocentric, and it's regional, and it's how we work together in our own neighborhoods and backyard.
Yeah, that is powerful.
So as we emerge from the pandemic, I would love to know what gives you hope that we're going to be able to close the gaps in opportunity across our country. And whoever would like to go first. Pam, you were ready.
Because we said we would. I mean, because we came together and said that we would, that we recover more justly and more equitably and more sustainably. And for the first time in a long time, we have all said the same thing. Education said it, our business and industry partners have said it, our nonprofits are committed to it. It is that single voice, I think, that gives me hope. And also that there's a deeper understanding of who that workforce is. Right? For the longest time, we figure the workforce is 17 to 22. They credential, they go through this linear path, whereas our workforce is already in the workforce. Right? When you talk about upskilling, you're talking about folks who are already in your place of business. You know them, they are loyal, and you know that they have potential. Educating adults, I think, brings to us the advantage that they know how to suit up and show up already. And what we're really saying to them is catch up on the digital pieces and on their new skills. And that's a different kind of training. We're not trying to mature 17-year-old students, even though that is a great joy. We really are saying to our adult population, come change with us because the workforce has changed or the environment has changed. But bring your work ethic, bring your love of family and community, bring your wish to be engaged. So we're really working with citizens. So the idea of where will we go from here? Well, we've been going there a long time. Folks have been supporting their family forever. What we're really doing is giving them a better system and better opportunity. And to me, that's hope. I don't, all of you know Joanne Pukowski probably at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital. And we have an interesting collaboration with them. We go to the lowest level skills employees they have. We draw them out and we train them to give them healthcare specific knowledge. So you would have a custodian a couple years later being your X-ray technician. Yet it is the same person. I think the idea that we need to somehow find a new population to retrain is false. These folks have been working for you, and they have been working for you well. So those are the folks that we want to support, and that's where the joy and connection is. We're creating a new family of workers, and that's pretty terrific.
I love that.
I would offer that, I think the events of the summer of 20 were really a wake-up call, and the need for social justice and equality of opportunity is pressed upon every corporate leader in kind of new, profound ways, and there's a real commitment there. That I think everybody was committed, but not at the level of intensity and that they are today. So, when I meet with other CEOs, people are very passionate about making a difference here, and it's really great to see. And so, when you look at some of the way the world is changing, there's a big focus on purpose and businesses having purpose and being positively impactful on society. That's a tailwind for this whole movement. If you look at the concerns around ESG, and now there's a whole cottage industry rating companies on their environmental, their social, their governance policies. It's important that you're keeping up, because you now are under some stress that what are you doing in this dimension? So you just have to do it as a business matter. But getting back to purpose, you do it because it's the right thing. It fits your credo. It fits your culture, and you want to push it ahead. So I just think there's a huge amount of momentum behind this, and companies view it as it's important for business reasons, and it's important for just the right reasons of how we want to operate. And you'll see us continue to really push this agenda going forward.
Thank you.
That's great. Just back in March of 2020, about 4 days' time, we moved 4,000 young adults into virtual settings.
Yeah.
Now, Europe's been a program that's been in person for 20 years. And so you hold your breath when that happens. You don't know what's going to happen to those that you care for and love in 27 locations across this country. We serve 35,000 young people, and they thrived, provided we gave them the underpinnings they needed, which in this case were the infrastructure, the broadband connections, the laptops, the headphones, because I can't listen if I have 15 people walking around. So if you support that young person, guess what we learned? They can build community online beautifully. In fact, they've done it a lot longer than we have in my generation. They showed they could learn what they needed to learn. They showed corporations they could show up and be professional through a Zoom call, right? And so that gave me tremendous hope that our young people are deeply resilient, deeply resilient. And yes, Jerry's point is well taken. You have to meet a learner where they are, right? And to provide them what they need. And so that gives me great hope. And the other piece, to build on what Bruce said, over 20, 25 years, our companies have learned what it means to be environmentally friendly, right? So they've learned, you've had carbon footprint measurement, you've had LEED certified buildings and recycling programs. So, but if you say environmental friendliness, Bruce would say, I understand what that means. There's frameworks, there's best practices, there's ways we know how to operationalize this. I am hopeful that this country over the next 20 years can go on a journey to become opportunity friendly in a way where we understand how do you operationalize that in an organization, in a company? What are the best practices? What are the standards? How do we do the things that allow us to create opportunity and build that, inculcate that into the operations of an organization? And I'm hopeful that with leadership that we have seen broadly, and then here at Citizens as a great example, that is a possibility that we can look back and say, wow, we are an opportunity-friendly organization, and we can explain how, why, and where that shows up.
Great answer. Great answer.
Let me end with a story. We have a client who 10 years ago, he's the CEO of a manufacturing company here in Massachusetts. 10 years ago, he had long lists of resumes looking for job openings at his company. 5 years ago, he had to start actually going out to visit different high school programs to begin to educate high school children about what a a career in manufacturing might look like and that it could create a really good life. Today, he's meeting with middle school kids, talking with them about what a career in manufacturing might look like. I'm encouraged because I think companies get it. As Bruce said, the standards have risen. I think society has demanded it. I think businesses in society have also educated themselves as to the importance. And I think Americans are standing tall right now. And I see it all around us. And so I'm really encouraged that what we're doing today, in the sort of reskilling area is going to also trickle down into early childhood education. And we're going to bring forward a whole new generation of kids that are going to have a much different perspective than the generations before them.
Thank you. Very inspired by these hopes, these necessary hopes that we want to make sure come into fruition. Let's open it up to our audience and have a bit of a Q&A. I would love to take questions from anyone that's here today. Oh, great. And there we go. I'm sure there's a microphone somewhere.
Hi, everybody. On. Hello. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Hey, I'm Tony DeLobo from Jumpstart. This conversation is great. I'm really curious what people think about raising taxes in order to support housing, in order to support early education, in order to support all the underpinnings that we need. There's going to be a millionaire's tax on the bill in 2022. Can folks just have a conversation about that? That's just, to me, has been missing in this conversation. Bruce?
Yeah. Well, I think we need to proceed cautiously on how we raise taxes. So kind of how and how much matter, because clearly we're already in this state, a relatively high cost state. And if you raise the millionaire's tax to a level that people say, I can do better going someplace else, you don't want to cause your most productive people and successful people to leave the state. But so kind of how the taxes are raised and then how they're targeted, how the spend, what spend specifically they're going to back matters as well. So I think that's the debate that's happening in Washington right now on a federal level is there's some really good things that people would like to back, and if the list is too big and then the taxes go up too much, is that going to be a drag on the economy? So we'll see how that plays out. So I think in some instances there are good reasons to put some targeted taxes in place to fund specific programs that we know have a good benefit associated with them. In other cases, if it becomes a big laundry list and the taxes explode up in many different directions, then it starts to become counterproductive and hurts the economy, and then it hurts the people that you're trying to help. So getting that equation right is really takes a lot of wisdom. So.
Yeah, and I might just add to what Bruce was saying in that, you also have to think about taxation if you're to, I don't want to make this about the millionaire's tax, but that also affects pass-through corporations, S corporations, partnerships, and the like. And so some of that taxation does hit the employer level. And as the world becomes more digitized, this is part of what I was trying to reference earlier, we have to be careful around the mobility of the workforce and the mobility of the economics that surround the workforce. And so I agree with Bruce that it's really a conversation about prudence when looking at an entire budget. There are competing priorities that are happening all the time. They're happening, I think, at an accelerated pace right now. We talk about some of the underpinnings, and transportation is a really great example. We need investment in transportation, but we also need investment in education, and there's a place where decisions need to be made. But I don't think the answer is a constant raising of taxes on a local population. I think that may lead to more innovative ideas in other jurisdictions attracting better outcomes.
And what I'd say is, as long as the revenue we raised, we can hold nonprofits, community colleges accountable for results, then that's always, to me, been a fair balance. Too often, having been in the sector for a while, our tax dollars aren't used well because we're not holding people accountable. And Darwin doesn't exist in the nonprofit sector. And Darwin should exist in the nonprofit sector. So I think there's also a recognition that incentives and accountability have to be just as strong in our sector. And therefore, as long as that money is being used efficaciously, I've been happy to pay taxes professionally, personally, organizationally when I ran my own company. But I also want to make sure that we're putting in results-based funding and not efforts-based funding from a government, city, state, federal point of view.
Good answer.
Let's see. Oh, I think we have. Oh, thank you. I'm like, where is? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Johnny Perez, and I'm an assistant vice president with Citizens, supporting enterprise payments, and as a Scrum Master, focused on technology enhancements. I am also an alumni of Year Up, and I am part of the program Citizens Year Up leadership team. Based on what we've heard today, career pathways continue to evolve. And there has been a definite shift from 4-year education requirements to a combination of 2 years and experience. How do you think career pathways will continue to evolve, and what skills and experience will set a good foundation for the future? Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. I'm happy to take up a part of that. And congratulations, by the way, on your achievements. That's really a terrific climb. You did good, Gerald.
The talent was always there, as you said.
Yeah.
We're the beneficiary, so.
It is terrific. I think the idea of pathways, career pathways, have taken hold in the last 5 to 8 years, particularly in the community colleges. And it's also come to the attention of the federal government. President Biden has revived the apprenticeship, the advisory to apprenticeship committee. That is a national effort in moving career development through the experiential path. So it's no longer go train at the school, go connect to business and industry and get a job. The idea of having apprenticeships, which is one of the pathways, is that you work full time with your business partner while you're taking courses to support your content work. I'm going to be chairing that national committee, and there will be about 30 people on it with a segment with union representation and industry representation and education representation. I bring that up because that kind of national conversation about what it means to have education and training merged in a meaningful way. Now, this is not new.
Some other countries do it great, like Germany.
Germany's been doing it forever, right? And we have John Dewey at the beginning of the educational world saying, yeah, you need to be working. That's where you're learning. So I think the idea of that linear, sort of selective, elitist idea of associate degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree is really transforming. All of us at the community colleges, all 15 of us, and nationwide, the 1,200 community colleges have begun to do those kinds of partnerships. And I would love to be able to explore for Greater Boston and for Massachusetts a deeper understanding of where we can do apprenticeships with post-traditional jobs. We identify now the apprenticeship idea with our unions, with our wonderful, mastery work in the electricals, in the carpenters, in the trades. But there's a huge, huge piece of learning that we can do in the post-trade environment to be able to develop pathway for students. So I think there are tons of ideas and tons of opportunities. And this is not the time to say, oh, it's just that tripartite thing that you need to work on. I think there are a lot of different variations that we're beginning to delve into. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we have reached time, and I'm sure there are more questions. We can continue to speak and talk after the session concludes. We do hope you stick around and network a bit, but please applaud our panelists here today. Thank you so much. It's such an important conversation that we all need to be having about our community. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyra.